I'm Royce Akers, editor of Vice Australia, and I'm here today with Julian Assange in the Embassy of Ecuador in London. Thanks for your time, Julian.
You're welcome.
So it's a day after they ruled on the Bradley Manning case. Were you surprised by the verdict, or was it something you were expecting?
I was not surprised by the verdict. We succeeded in an important component yesterday, which was to knock off the aiding the enemy charge, which was a potential death sentence. Now there's still a lot of work to do. We've won the battle about this, but we have to win the war. He's now facing 136 years for sentencing, 20 convictions, 5 convictions for espionage. That's the first time a US military whistleblower who is an alleged journalistic source has been convicted for espionage. Here we have a case where, as far as the government is concerned, there's been no victims. No one has come to harm. No evidence was adduced of that. There was no claim of that. The only claim was that he was a whistleblower giving information to the public via a media organisation. It cannot be the case that when a journalist's source gives information to the media for noble reasons, that they are charged with espionage. There's no relationship with a foreign power. It is an attempt to set a precedent to shift how journalism is done in the United States, to make the security services uncriticisable in practice. I said much earlier on that this was a show trial, 141 prosecution witnesses, over 20 of them giving secret testimony. Guantanamo Bay reporters have said it was more secret than the actions in Guantanamo Bay. So this was never a fair process. He was never treated in a fair way. He was locked in a cage in Kuwait. He was stripped naked. He was deprived of his glasses. The UN even formally found against the United States a UN Special Rapporteur for Torture, Juan Mendez. This is an example of the collapse of the rule of law in the United States. And why does it do that? Why does the United States destroy its reputation like that? Why is it engaged in such self-flagellation to do that? Because the desire for authority is much higher than the desire for morality. The desire to be seen as a vicious authority that can terrorize people is higher than the desire to be seen as an authority that commands respect as a result of its integrity. That sort of trade-off has been made. It's also been made in the Edward Snowden case, where the US has fanned out preemptive extradition requests, where it has denounced Edward Snowden for meeting with human rights groups, Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch in Moscow. Denounced him for speaking, not just for leaking documents, but denounced him for even speaking about these issues. White House correspondent Jay Carney. There's another example.
A lot of people know you for your maybe run-ins with the American government and big European banks, and now you're running
quite a few other states as well,
and quite a few other states, and now you're now that you're running for Australian Senate, is that a shift of focus for you?
No, it's another exploration. So, Plato said that the penalty for not being involved in politics has been ruled over by your inferiors. His basic viewpoint is correct, that if you do not engage yourselves, then they will deploy the assets of nation states accordingly. And we saw that as a publisher with Australia, where the Australian government publicly stated that it had started a whole-of-government task force against WikiLeaks, and me personally, involving ASIO, the Domestic Intelligence Service, ASIS, the External Intelligence Service, the AFP, equivalent of the Australian FBI, the Department of Defence and the Attorney General's Office. It then proceeded to try and cancel my passport, and it provided intelligence to the United States about me and the WikiLeaks organisation, which is an Australian publisher.
If some people see your Senate run as maybe there's some sort of payback aspect to it, would that be accurate at all? Or?
I think that there might be a little bit of payback aspect to it, yeah. That's right. But we don't want it to happen again. We don't want it to happen again to WikiLeaks. We don't want it to happen again to other Australian journalists. We don't want it to happen again to any Australian publishers. And we don't want the broader aspect to happen again. And the broader aspect is corruption of purpose, where representatives say that they're being elected to represent Australian interests, but they actually engage in feathering their own nests or representing interests of a foreign state or a big corporation. I've been in business for many years of understanding states, bureaucracies, quite complex, that involve millions of documents, really big organizations and their interlinkages, and to bring the professionalism that we've sort of developed in WikiLeaks to the Australian Senate. I think that's very exciting.
Let's say you get into the Senate. You obviously have a relationship with the US government. Can you foresee any ramifications?
Yeah, it would be pretty interesting. So if I'm elected to the Senate, then I should take my seat next September, by next September. And so there will be then a question, is there some grace period? Let's say this situation in the United States and Britain is resolved. The Senate has an opportunity to give me some grace of a month, 2 months, however long it likes actually. Would it do that? Would the two major parties actually do that? The answer is probably no. That's very interesting. As far as the United States is concerned, well, I don't think it really matters. They see Australia as an information quarry, as an unsinkable aircraft carrier to put their Marines and troops and landing pads and drone bases. Those aspects are still there.
What are some issues that you are looking forward to applying that expertise?
Mostly issues of information asymmetry. And that's what I've been involved in for 20 years and what WikiLeaks has been doing. And information asymmetry is when, say when you go to a drug dealer and you're looking for some pure drug and in fact you get something that is cut with some poison. But that's also the case now with government secrecy. So you have government organizations accumulating information and restricting it. And a result of that, their accumulation and restriction from the Australian public is that they have an increase in power. Every issue flows from this. One of the attacks that is used on us is, oh, well, you're just concerned with just one thing as a party. Yeah, but I mean, so are the Democrats, as originally formulated, they're concerned with democracy. Yeah, we're concerned with transparency, justice and accountability, and that is, everything derives from that. Everything in government derives from that. So for example, I started WikiLeaks because I understood that simple direct engagements in politics don't work. That everything that is politically possible is defined by what is possible to report in the media. That we live in a mediocrity, which means that presently spin masters are those people who rise to the top. And that is something to do with the nature of media reporting, the lack of diversification of media ownership in Australia, the constraints on good quality investigative journalism, the few number of reporters and the few number of media outlets. Vice is actually a rather good new addition to that in Australia, so is Crikey, so is The Conversation and so on. But that needs to be massively increased, and there's a proper way to do that. And the proper way to do that is to provide incentives for all Australians to be able to produce content. We can turn tens of thousands and perhaps up to 100,000 Australians into people who are producing content for Australia.
Do Australians have cause for concern about Australian intelligence agencies?
Yeah, I mean, the big problem with Australian intelligence agencies is that they're not Australian intelligence agencies. That's the big problem. You know, I like intelligence agencies in theory. I mean, it has the word intelligence in it, right? I mean, that's a good start to actually try and understand something. The German intelligence agency, the Bundesgeheimdienst, BND, is a federal news service. So it's an idea that you might understand the world. But because of the secrecy, that basic idea, which is a good idea of understanding the world, becomes corrupted very, very quickly. And in the case of Australian intelligence agencies, it has meant that they are subordinate to the US system.
You addressed the crowd and you detailed a plan to help fund arts out of the defense budget. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Our military shouldn't be wasted on absurd Hollywood fantasies chasing around refugees, and they shouldn't be wasted fulfilling missions for a foreign power, in the case of the United States. The export of Australian film, internet information and so on is one of the things that allows other countries to develop a rapport with us. And the United States has done this very, very successfully and extremely aggressively across the world. And Australia should be doing it not the way the United States does it. We can do it in a much more efficient manner.
So like Hugh Jackman could be seen as a military asset?
Yeah, Hugh Jackman is a military asset.
Who do you think is going to win the Australian election this year?
Yeah, it's no one good. No one good is the answer in relation to PM. If you have a choice of someone who knows the system, knows how to play it, do you elect them, even though they're an insider to it? Or do you elect someone who's an outsider to the system and not contaminated by it? Say in the case of Gillard or in the case of Barack Obama. But then what happens? They don't know the thing, and so they have to sort of suck up to it. They're scared of its power. They don't understand the parts. They don't have any levers they can pull. And so they're very, very quickly completely captured by it, which is what happened to Barack Obama and to Gillard. Rudd, he's already part of it, but he's not fooled by it. There's no need to be. He's already part of it. That's why you need people like me who are experts in it, but are not part of it.